Howdy, and welcome to Risky Standard, an actual play podcast featuring a rowdy group of best friends playing tabletop role-playing games together. I'm your host and GM, Mitch Broesder. You can find me on Twitter over at Magnesium B. You can find the show over on Twitter at Standard Risky. You can always come find us as well in the show's Discord. There's a link to that in the show notes. We're there chatting about upcoming season changes for the show, sharing character sheets, inspiration images, checking in on what kinds of interesting and unusual potato chips people have been eating recently. That's a hot topic of discussion right now.
Yeah, aka Crispy Standard. Come check it out.
With me today, I've got Pete Loftus.
Hey everybody, I'm Pete. I'm Ember's favorite ace pilot with my back against the wall.
Good.
He's flexing.
Yeah. All right, I'll put my shirt back on. Sorry.
We've also got Malcolm Hall here tonight.
Hey, I want to repeat what Midge said about the chip talk on the Discord. And also, we have a dog and pet in general channel now, which I'm very into. I finally understand what Discord is for now. Talking about dogs and chips and talking about mechs and stuff like that. I don't really get it. Not for me. But all the other stuff is great.
We got you covered. I got it for more than one.
And of course, we also have our good friend here, Timothy Mans.
Hello, fine listeners. Glad to be here with you tonight. I think we're going to take it nice and slow and, really just kind of have a gentle game tonight. So, cozy up, grab a book, and listen along.
Don't grab a book.
Don't grab a book. If you grab a book right now,
put it down.
You have to start the season over. You don't get to listen to this yet.
This will be coming out. The weather's probably going to start to be crisp. Ooh. Go for a walk. Take your dog for a walk.
With headphones.
Post a picture of it.
And
so
post
we can
a picture
see
of it
in the Discord
while you're listening, and or maybe do the dishes. I don't know.
It's probably gonna be long enough you can get both of those in. To be honest,
yeah.
I think. Or I don't know. Yeah,
I don't know. We're all nervous as fucking shit.
Yeah, we are all nervous. I think.
And it's so weird not having Mitch as the point person right now.
Why are we nervous? Because today's episode is going to be the start of our season finale. I'm not sure exactly how many episodes this is going to end up being, but we are going to, in today's episode, start to draw the curtain on the world of Ember and the members of the Black Star Constellation.
Yeah, and I think, sorry to interrupt, I think before we get too far into this, I want to take a second and just say thanks. If you're listening to this, wherever you are out there, whenever you are out there, somewhere out in the stars, it probably means you've made it this far. And that means you were willing to take the leap with us and help us explore some of the blank spaces on the map. This podcast has meant a lot to us this season. Being able to share some of the worlds we've imagined together and have you, dear listener, along for the ride really means a lot. We're really appreciative of all the support and friends we made along the way this season. I want to give a special thanks to Mongoose Loose, Mr. Bruce, Frond, Ruby Ghost, and all our other risk takers in the Discord for their support and contributions this season. It's been really fun to, I think, open up this kind of imaginary thing we've been doing for years and have everybody else with a voice and a place for it. So, if you made it this far, you might as well hop on in the Discord. We'll put a link in the show notes, like Mitch said, with some fun stuff coming up. But we're really grateful for your participation and your ongoing support. So thank you again for listening. Get on in there and drop a 5-star review. You want to.
Yeah, tell your friends, tell your mom and dad and your cousins about the show too. And I don't know. This is this whole thing has been so much more successful beyond like anything that I thought any of us was going to be. We have somebody doing fan art, which was like that was a huge milestone that we wanted to hit, and we just hit that. This was I think just an excuse, really, as it started. Just to highlight Mitch's brilliance and like
Truly.
What an amazing storyteller he is, the smartest of the boys, and I'm the tallest, and. Just also was a great excuse. We used to play games when I say we all lived together, when you boys lived together, and I just would be
Pretty
there
much
all the
lived there,
time.
yeah.
Kramer style situation.
You know, you're my best friends, and we all moved to the four corners of the country and didn't get to play anymore. And then, you know, during lockdown, started playing again and played an amazing campaign. Then once the world opened back up again, I knew that we didn't have us playing again was probably not going to be top priority. And this has, you know, been an opportunity so that I can get with the boys every week and roll some dice. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah. I think suffice to say, it's been a really long time coming. This is the culmination of a lot of work, so it's really nice to find like-minded people across the world. So,
and truly across the world, that blows my fucking mind all the time. Knowing that people, and even people who like live in like whatever my own state in different parts, are also listening is so weird to me.
Yeah, I'll say remarkably few people I actually know. But, you know, that's part of the fun.
True.
Yeah. It feels good to know that even though we talk about space and what's out there, to know that when we record this, it doesn't just get shot into emptiness, and that there are people out there who get to hear the transmission and, you know, send some signals back, and that just feels good. So I'm glad you guys are all here.
Well, our stretch goal for the Patreon is to beam Risky Standard into space. We're looking for funds now.
We're gonna have it etched on a golden record and have it shot into space with pictures of our likenesses, fully nude, of course.
It'll be the most understood.
Well, with that, let's get into it.
Yeah, well said, lads. It's been a real treat. And it will continue to be a treat. Assuming this world and these characters still exist after the end of this finale, I think we all plan on returning to the world of Ember. But after we wrap up this story, we're going to spend a little bit of time playing a different game in a different world and genre. I know we mentioned this before, but I want to hit it again. We are going to be playing the Wild Sea.
Ahoy, mateys! We be sailing upon the wild sea. I'm very excited for it.
I think we're all really excited for it. It's this really fascinating, weird fantasy adventure RPG. It's exploring some really exciting, like, mechanical innovations, kind of branching out from the Forged in the Dark engine, while still kind of retaining a lot of the ethos and the same ideas. I think I gave this pitch line last time, but you know, it's about a world where centuries ago, the empires of the world were toppled by a wave of fast-growing greenery, a tide of rampant growth, which gave rise to a world that we will explore as wild sailors, part of a crew cutting our way across the island-studded wilderness of the tree-topped sea. I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be strange. We've already got character ideas down. You'll be hearing some more of this soon. We're going to probably intersperse the end of this season with a few one-offs. We've got a few ideas cooking there. And then probably a few world-building games that will kind of lead us into the Wild Sea and Season 2. But that is all in the future. We're talking about today. Because today we are not continuing Beam Saber by Austin Ramsey. As always, you can find a link to buy Beam Saber over on Austin's itch.io page inside the show notes. We have loved Beam Saber. I think it's been a very fun campaign so far. I think there is still a lot left that we'd like to do with it in the future. But for our finale today, we have decided collectively to play something that is a little bit more narrative driven to let us really hit the scope and scale that we were looking for. Which is why today, instead, we are playing Follow by Ben Robbins. Link to Ben's website and to a place where you can buy Follow and Ben's other games in the show notes as well. Ben is a designer of several excellent GM-less games, including very popular games such as Microscope. I think it's probably like the biggest one, Kingdom. And today we're very excited to use Follow to close out the story of this season. I'm just going to read here from the book of Follow to give you an idea of what's going on and what we're going to be doing today. Follow is a game about working together to achieve a common goal. Slay the dragon, cure a disease, overthrow a tyrant, get your candidate elected. We'll play a quest together to decide what kind of game we want to play. Can we stay united and succeed, or will our differences tear us apart? We'll play and find out. Follow isn't about us coming up with the best plan or a clever solution. It's about seeing what these characters do for better or worse. We may even intentionally make bad choices because they seem like decisions our characters would make. But even if we do everything perfectly, our quest may fail. As players, We can push for the outcome we want to see, but we cannot guarantee it. Our story may surprise us, and that's part of the fun. Follow is a game where we will be playing as what the game refers to as a fellowship, a collection of characters pursuing a common goal, a quest. And there are about 20 of these quests, each of them with a kind of different target or description, and a series of challenges that we will play out to determine whether or not our characters succeed. But before we hop into Follow, I kind of want to like set us up a little bit, and then we will kind of start digging into the mechanics of Follow and start playing today's finale. So last we left off, the crew had been bunkered down in the low tower following the events of the last mission, and the arrival of the enormous sandstorm from the outer dust, which has been making its way towards the city over the last several weeks. Suddenly, alarms all over Coronatus and inside the low tower started to sound as the stage lit up with alerts. The Concordat are invading the city under the cover of the sandstorm. And that was like where we left off, but before we get into Follow, I do have some like narrative stitching that I want to like put in here to kind of carry us from like that moment into kind of the moment where we're going to hop into Follow.
Mm-hmm.
The Concordat invasion of Coronatus does not begin at its gates. It starts inside them. Elite squads of Concordat saboteurs and killers, empowered by the Fundament and armed with smuggled weapons, strike decisively under the cover of the raging sandstorms. The Primarch of the Coronatus Council, Demeter Pollux, is dead. Alongside her in death are more than a dozen other counselors. There are other counselors who would lie bleeding on their floors as well, but the firebrand known as Thea Desdemona has been spreading the word of this possible treachery. There are assassins who enter manors and council offices only to find them empty. Would-be killers who are greeted by blades and gunfire. Alloy Braithlight and a close-knit circle of other counselors make a declaration of assumed power from a secret location inside the city walls. They command the city's civil authority, its police force, to stand down in the face of the invading army. The civil authority, long bought by Braithlight and his allies, complies and stands ready to quell any protest against their new masters. At the same time, Thea Desdemona and her allies proclaim themselves the new People's Council of Coronatus, vowing to defend the city and its independence. The Keepers of the Lighthouse, Coronatus' military force, oath-bound and sworn to defend the beacon, ally themselves with this new council and draw arms against former brothers who would see their charge given over to the Concordat. The Keepers, forewarned by Thea, arm the weapons of the beacon and prepare to defend it as the first hint of what is to come arrives. A salvo of blazing blue fundamental bolts, which crash against the great tower. Precision blows that detonate its gun batteries and dismantle the elevators that creep along its sides. Outside the city walls, a ceramic horde approaches, their long trek out of the mountains and to the city of Coronatus disguised by the sandstorm, which begins to falter and fade as the invading force arrives. Thousands of men and dozens of armors approach in force across the crater-pocked plains that surround the great city, blue light discharging from their weapons as they charge. Thaumaturges reach into the fundament and twist, warping reality to rain devastation on the defenders of Coronatus. Relic machines activate, unleashing bizarre weapons designed an eon ago. And following behind all of them, a glittering white tower that stands like a strange twin to the beacon ahead. A tower crowned with 7 spires, jutting out of a vast mechanical bulk, which crawls implacably across the landscape. This is the flagship weapon of the Legion, a mobile fortress they call the anvil by whose striking a star was forged. At the very apex of the anvil stands a woman in white armor, etched and gilded in gold. She wears a pale purple cloak which trails out into the vast sky behind her. It is a tapestry, a celebration of the martial history of the consecrated Lilac Expeditionary Legion, and she is a Rada Chantant, its commander come to add to the Legion's legacy. The city of Coronatus is under siege. And
well, listeners, if you're not scared.
And so that's what we're going to do today. The first part of Follow is that we pick our quest. First, we'll decide what quest we want to tackle. The quest is the framework for our whole game. It is the kind of the structure that we are going to be playing around. And as I said before, there are a lot of these different quests that can kind of play out as a lot of different styles of story. We have already preemptively chosen the quest that we are going to be playing today, which is The Siege. Our city is under siege. Hold off the attackers long enough and they'll have to quit and go home. We are soldiers, cities, and unlucky refugees. It says in a medieval city. We are in a space opera city, right? In a space fantasy city. And first part of a quest, we customize our quest, which is to say we answer a few things about it. Normally in a game of Follow, we might be playing in a completely new world, telling a brand new story. Obviously, we have some established elements that we are going to be dealing with here already. So the game asks us to customize our quest together. What's our city called? Is it large, small, prosperous, or humble? Obviously, we are in the city of Coronatus. Why are they attacking us, it asks. Are they religious crusaders, conquerors seeking loot and glory, or are we caught in the middle of a larger war? Kind of all three there, right?
Right.
Yeah.
They are religious crusaders seeking loot and glory, and we are caught in the middle of their larger war.
I'd agree with that.
We've picked the siege. We know where we are and who's doing the sieging. What makes our quest difficult? The game asks us, as a group, brainstorm 2 things that make our quest difficult. We can take examples from the quest sheet or make up our own. These difficulties get everyone on the same page about what stands in our way. They may inspire the challenges we confront later on, or just tell us more about the world and the situation we're in. So we can look at, some of the examples on the siege page, right? What makes our quest difficult? Factions in the city are divided. Wealthy landowners, nobles, trade guilds, and theocrats each look after their own interests. Morale is low. Many within the city would rather surrender. The city is too sprawling to defend. We can't guard everywhere. Supplies are low. These are all sort of default suggestions, but I think we should talk a little bit. What are the 2 things we want to highlight when we are asking, what makes this siege difficult? What makes our quest difficult?
What makes it difficult? Well,
I think first and foremost, the Concordat is just such a sprawling galactic power.
Overwhelming force. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think, the thing I would want to hit or to add on to that maybe is, it's not just that the Concordat has more troops, which I think is broadly true. I think they have a larger army than Coronatus has as a standing defense force. But also they have more advanced technology, stranger technology, access to fundamental weaponry that the defenders of Coronatus do not possess. So maybe something along the lines of the Concordat are a larger force with more advanced technology, something like that.
Yeah. I wrote the Concordat has overwhelming force as well as strange and fundamental technologies in our notes.
Yeah, do we all like that as our first, what makes this quest difficult?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
I would say so.
Also with that, they have a certain, I don't know, needs to be added, but a fervor that comes with being a attacking
Sure.
Concordat army in a way that we have to then go into maybe a second issue, unifying any type of force in the city.
Yes. I was going to bring that up too. Is the second one, the one that jumps out at me is factions in the city are divided. There are those who are content with kind of occupation because they've profited from it. There's those who are, I think have lived through an era of fear, who are kind of just content to keep their head down, and there's those who can't take it anymore. Like the cogs themselves, I think we've even seen kind of be a little bit off the cuff, maybe hot for violence, but all these different, and then there's the Rebus Actuals of the world.
And like you said, there's the cogs, but there's Commonwealth sort of loyalists here. There's people who would see the city stay independent. And you have Alloy Braithlight and these traders on the inside who are already trying to hand the city over. So I think factions in the city are divided is a solid second difficulty to kind of highlight, which, kind of gives us an idea, maybe some of the challenges we're going to look at tackling as we continue on. So we picked our quest. We have decided what makes our quest difficult. Next, we have to put together our fellowship. Our fellowship is the group of characters working together to complete the quest. We'll each have 2 characters today, a main character and a minor character. Both are part of our fellowship, but our story is primarily about our main characters. And, again, because we are playing with a group of pre-established characters here, we are not spinning this out whole cloth. I think we already kind of know who the main characters are in here, right? Unless anyone has some real curveballs they want to throw. I imagine Pete is going to be playing as Rhodes today.
Yep, I'm gonna stick with Rhodes. Did a lot of thinking about it. I'll probably play him.
Similarly, Malcolm, Desmond, Tim, Carta. Is there any surprises there?
No, I mean, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Me and Desmond are pretty much the same guy. So I thought it'd be best if I played him.
Malcolm is 5'3", covered in a thick pelt of hair.
And can fly, kind of.
Glide.
Can glide.
Glide.
Fall with style.
So yeah, and then this is fun for me. There's no GM in Follow. I suspect I might take a little bit more of a guiding hand than I would normally do in like a sort of freestanding game of Follow, just because of our pre-existing kind of relationship in this game. But for today's quest, I am going to be playing for my main character, Seldom Rowe, the attendant of the apparatus, the Black Star Constellation's kind of technician. And yeah, so she will be my main character as we go forward into the defense of Coronatus against this sieging force. And so now that we've all chosen a main character, the next thing that we have to answer is, so what do we want from the quest? We all want the quest to succeed, but what does your main character want from the quest? It could be something you would get out of our success, or it could be how you want us to fulfill the quest. Another way to put this is, why are you on the quest? And again, this is a thing. There are several examples on the sheet, right? Unity, to keep the city unified, protect everyone equally. Or authority here, I should lead the city or command the defense. Victory, crush the besiegers, don't just outlast them. And or we could, answer this with our own ideas, obviously. So, does anyone know right out of the gate, what does your character want from the quest?
I mean, I think it's pretty easy to pick this, but I think protection is very, on the surface, what we want to do. I know at least Carta has, through working with the cogs and building that kind of force up alongside all the members of the ring, that this is a city that he wants to protect,
Okay, I'm just going off the book right here. I got you on record that says Carta is here to guard the wealthy, nobles, priests. Yeah. Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, protect every single person with the same amount of vigor protection for at least, the people that he has seen fight for this city already, and I think it's an easy one to say, is protection, yeah.
Yeah, Carter's people, right? The cogs, the people who've been crushed under the system, right? I think that makes sense to me. Does anyone else have an idea already of what their character wants?
I think Desmond just wants to survive.
Survival, okay.
Yeah, he just wants to survive and to live to fight another day.
I like that. I like that a lot.
For Rhodes, I wrote victory. Pretty plain and simple. Raise the city's defenses, repel the assault.
That's all. This is very well-rounded. Everybody's desires, I think.
Yeah. And then I also have to do this because I'm playing today. I'm also going to pick protection here. Seldom Rowe also wants to protect something, but it is certainly not the wealthy, the nobles, the priests. It's not even the poor or my family. Seldom Rowe wants to protect the apparatus and its presence in Coronatus. I do not want the Concordat to gain access to any of the apparatus's nodes in the city or its powers here, right? It is more important to me than anything that we ensure that the apparatus is not compromised by this invading force. And so we all know what we want from the quest now. There is a second thing that we have to ask here, which is what we want from you. Your main character starts off with a difficult relationship with the character to their left. Pick something you want from them that's important to you, but which they are unwilling to give you. Choose from the examples on the quest sheet or make up your own. Our choice here tells the other player what kind of tension we want to have between our characters. It should be something that we're both happy with and are interested in exploring, even if our characters hate this thing. So for me, it would be, what does Seldom Rowe want from Carta that Carta won't give me? For Desmond, it'll be, what does Desmond want from Seldom Rowe that Seldom Rowe won't give him? Rhodes, what do you want from Desmond that Desmond won't give you? And then Carta, what do you want from Rhodes that Rhodes won't give you?
I have an idea. We'll see what makes on the air, but I also want to make sure, we'll chat it through, right? I'm just not just declaring stuff. So it's more like an open question, I guess, for Des.
Yeah, we should both players should be happy with this thing. You know what I mean? It should be a note about the characters that we are interested in exploring.
What I want from Desmond, but Desmond won't give me, I think Rhodes wants Desmond to push Thea Desdemona to open up the civil, because the Alloy Braithwaite's in the way, right? Is the corrupt city official who's kind of taken a little more sway over the Coronatus Civil Defense Force.
Yeah, there are now two kind of competing powers in Coronatus. There is the traditional Coronatus Council, which Alloy Braithlight and his allies have proclaimed themselves as the inheritors of, after the Concordat assassinated most of the higher ranking members who were opposed to Concordat power. Braithlight and the Loyalists have control of the city's civil authority, its sort of police force. Meanwhile, Thea Desdemona has proclaimed herself as one of the leaders of the People's Council of Coronatus, with whom the Keepers of the Lighthouse, Coronatus's sort of military force, have allied themselves. So Braithlight and the Loyalists have the police, and they also have the support of the Concordat. Thea and the People's Council have the support of the military and are, fighting a two-front war, right? They are fighting off these loyalists and then also trying to maintain defense of the walls and, most importantly, of the beacon itself. And so that is kind of like the situation in the city factionally.
I think then Rhodes wants Desmond to bring Thea Desdemona into the ring, essentially. What do you think about that? Get Thea Desdemona to understand the stakes.
But what do you want from me, though?
I want you to be essentially commanding that force, right? Or whatever. I think Rhodes has kind of moved into Generalissimo mode and is Desmond, you are in charge of that.
But what do you want? If you could put it down into one or two words. I think is what we're looking for, right?
Pick something that you want from them that's important to you, but which they are unwilling to give you. So maybe another way to figure this could be, is that a good summary? You want Des to bring Thea in to take on an active role in leading this siege? Is that kind of what we're leaning for?
Yeah, more or less. Essentially becoming another column here in the martial response. So yeah, I think leadership. I want Desmond to lead with Thea Desdemona.
And does that make sense for you, Des? As a thing you're not giving Rhodes?
Yeah, well, I think so, and I also think that is nice because it's been a running theme between the two of us.
Right, we're trying to push. Yeah, exactly.
I like that. Anybody else have anything yet? What they want from another player that is important to you, but which they are unwilling to give you.
Yeah, I guess for Rhodes, I'm figuring out the exact word is tricky, but especially with Rhodes wanting victory, to kind of crush the Concordat forces that are coming for us, his history with that. I think after recent events, Carta, he wants Rhodes to understand that there are a lot of people here who are not fighters, if that makes sense, to remember that these are a lot of people who are very scared within a city. And while we are trying to protect them, not everyone is going to be able to step up and be the fighter that he is or wants them to be. So I guess
I really like that.
It's not understanding, but maybe it's if a better word, a level of compassion.
Compassion is good.
Just that, yeah, for the people here who are just scared and aren't ready to step up to the challenge that needs to be faced, but maybe don't have the history. Rhodes has been doing this for what we've said hundreds of years at this point. So
yeah, about 100 century or two.
Yeah, these are people who have not seen that before. So an understanding that not everyone is ready to face the gunfire. So maybe compassionate understanding.
I think that's good. Yeah, I think that makes a certain amount of sense. So I think you've probably got the trickiest one here, Desmond, because I think you and Seldom have not had the most interactions, really. But I think one way to also think about Seldom Rowe maybe here, right, as this attendant of the apparatus, is also as kind of a stand-in for the ring at large.
Mm-hmm.
If that helps you kind of...
I think if that I did see it that way. I think that what Desmond wants power.
Oh, but I won't give it to you. That's interesting. What kind of... Let's
secret power. I think the apparatus is very confusing and scary to Des. He's said as much before. He thinks Seldom is spooky. The weird biohacking stuff is foreign and uncomfortable to him. So, but I think that he realizes if he's going to make it out of this alive, he's going to need that unknown power or something. Does that track?
Yeah, that's kind of fun, right? I mean, we can play this up a little bit too, which is I think probably Seldom views Desmond as the least committed of these three. The squad that she's been assisting this whole time, right, has seen Desmond be the one who's kind of always with one foot out the door. And so, yeah, we can play that, right? You're not being let in all the way. You're not being given everything because of that. Yeah.
Unless somebody has a better idea. That was the first thing that came to mind.
I like that, and I think it's like also kind of an abbreviated version of like what is it that the apparatus like wants here, or gives you an opportunity to like figure out what exactly is Seldom's drive here. I like it.
So yeah, I think I've got one for Seldom. This one's kind of out of left field though, and so I'm going to pitch this. And if you're not into it, Carta, not into it, Tim, we can scrap it. And I've got like a different idea.
Okay.
But this is one I've been, I think, subtly shading in throughout the season as like a thing that was kind of always in the back of my mind, but then never like at the forefront. I think that what Seldom Rowe wants from Carta is affection.
A kiss.
I think, yeah. I think that Carta is one of the only people in the squad who has like treated Seldom like a person and not kind of as this like
extension of the apparatus.
Yeah, this like I think even within the ring, right, the attendants are kind of weirdos, right? They treat the apparatus as more of a god than like a logistics engine, right? They kind of broach the line between like authority and worship with this thing. So this is like a thing I think I've tried to kind of shade in a little bit during the season of like Seldom's interest in Carta. So that's like I don't know. Yeah, how do you feel about a little bit of a romance in our war story?
Sure.
Risky Standard is the only media that dares to ask, what if your podcast had a parasocial relationship with you instead?
Yeah, I think that's interesting. We really haven't seen any of that. And I think this is a wild, as tensions and passions are high, for that to be something expressed in this moment, I think is very interesting. And trauma such as war, I imagine, can be something that brings people together. So,
so the other key thing here to me, right, is it's what do I want from Carta, but you won't give me. And I think, we're also dealing with a Carta who is now, right, who just took the scar Hollow. Was that the one we decided on? Yeah. Right. A Carta who has been, kind of like obsessed with his mission this entire season, who, has been, there's been a distance that like has been unreachable, right? And like Seldom's been the person there who's been trying to help you every step of the way of like carry you to completing that goal. And there's like a question now of like, now that the goal is finished, now that you've done that, like, is there hope? Is there a chance to create that relationship, or is Carta too far gone?
Yeah, that's interesting. Hollow in relationship to another person.
Like you've just been like numbed out by the constant fighting.
Yeah, I guess I think in Carta's mind, it's not about what he wants. He had been focused on that for so long that like it's about everyone else in front of him who's fighting, So to even have to like kind of go back into his own, like inner self is hard to like even go back there, because it's easier to just focus on the outward elements of his life than the inner life that he has. So,
bro, don't I know it?
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So that's good. So just to revisit here, right? I am Seldom Rowe. From the quest, I want protection to protect the apparatus and its presence in Coronatus. And what I want from Carta, but he won't give me. Affection. I want a genuine human connection with Carta, to be acknowledged as another person with wants and needs.
I am Desmond, no last name. What do I want for the quest? To survive and to live to fight another day. What I want from Seldom, but you won't give me. Power. Access to the apparatus' strange powers, and admittance into the inner circle.
I'm playing as Rhodes Rampart. As Coronatus is under siege, I want victory from this quest, to raise the city's defenses and repel the assault. From Desmond, I want leadership. I want Desmond to lead Thea Desdemona into the ring's defense of Coronatus, but he won't give it to me.
Me, as Carta, I want protection. I want to protect the people who have fought for the ring and the common man of Coronatus. What I want from Rhodes, but what he won't give me, is compassion, empathy for those who are weak or frightened to join the fight.
So yeah, with that, we then pick our minor characters. We each have a minor character in this game. These are characters we can kind of play, in scenes where it doesn't make sense for our main character to be there. They're supporting cast, and some of them will almost certainly be lost if our quest takes difficult turns. A good choice here is to make a character who is connected to one of the main characters across the table from you, who would not interact primarily with your own main character. And we've already assigned these, beforehand, but I think we can just run through them. For my minor character, I am going to be playing as Jasper Som, the Lectorian, who is one of the kind of leading members of the COG fire team that accompanies the Black Star Constellation. I was with you all on the most recent adventure in Installation Violet, and I grew up in Coronatus and have seen my city kind of taken over by outside powers over the course of my life.
I am playing Zed and Bitter. And you might be thinking, hey, those are two people. How is that one character? It's like, well, just chill out, relax, and shut up. We've talked about it. It's sort of like a sort of Ice Fighters from Smash kind of situation.
Takes two people to pilot an aerolifter.
Exactly. Takes two people, and I will not abuse this advantage too much, I promise.
I do want to see some dialogue between them.
Yeah, have them talking to each other. Great.
Yeah. Oh, you're going to get some.
I am playing as my second character is Gates Technic, who is a leader in the Ring's Open Palm, the kind of humanitarian mission, mutual aid effort for the Ring. We've seen Gates kind of alongside some of the cogs in some of the kind of general outreach of the Ring. They were also kind of getting harassed by the Golden Bayonets towards the middle of the season. Gates is a young Lectorian idealist.
And my second character will be Eleanor Fade, who is the leader of the Ring group, the Threaded Needle. But yeah, so they are in charge of like logistics for the Ring and moving people at times, supplies, weapons, various different things. So they are connecting various factions, getting them what they need.
And so, yeah, with our fellowship assembled, it is time to play, to start our quest. So, the way playing Follow works, to complete our quest, our fellowship will face 3 challenges. We won't know what challenges will confront us at the start. We'll only know as they arise. Each challenge is something we need to do to move closer to our goal. If we succeed at a challenge, we are more likely to succeed at the quest. If we fail, or ignore, or refuse at the challenge, it doesn't mean the quest immediately fails, but it makes it harder for us to win in the end. You must pick challenges from the quest sheet, but our choices and the order we put them in define the flavor of our game. You know, if we're doing a heist, do we start with assembling the team and figuring out how to get into the vault, or do we start with the loot already in hand and spend the rest of the game trying to get away? You know, so we have a lot of leeway here to kind of structure this narratively how we want to. We'll play 3 rounds of challenges. For each of the 3 rounds, we're going to follow these steps. We will pick our challenge and describe why it is difficult. We will play scenes to explore how our characters deal with the challenge and each other. And at the end, we will draw stones to see if the fellowship succeeds or fails at the challenge, and whether any of our characters were lost or betrayed the fellowship. Our third challenge will be different. Its outcomes determines the success or failure of the entire quest. But our wins and losses in the first 2 challenges will influence our chances of victory. And after that third challenge is resolved, and we've seen whether or not our fellowship succeeded, we will play a short epilogue to look at the characters' lives after the quest. After all was said and done, was the quest worth it to them? And that'll probably give us like a little bit of a peek, maybe, you know, at or some idea at least of where we might return to these characters in season 3. With that said, who's ready to play Follow?
Me, baby. Mitch, I think you should get us started as reigning GM.
So, at the start of every challenge, we choose a player to pick the next challenge. It must be someone who has not picked one already. And that person selects a challenge from the quest sheet. Picking a challenge establishes that it is the next important step we need to take in our quest. It can be any of the challenges listed on the sheet, whatever we think is appropriate, even one that has already been used. The game tells us, when in doubt, just ask ourselves, what would we need to do next? So, looking at the challenges on the sheet, I'm just going to read off a few of the challenges that we could choose in the siege, right? So we're only going to do 3 of these overall, and the last one that we choose will be the one that decides the entirety of the quest. Some of the things here are feed the starving populace, you know, deal with looting, deal with low morale, root out traitors in our midst, unify rival city factions, stop citizens from accepting terms of surrender, prevent people from leaving or abandoning the city, get reinforcements from outside the city, deal with a weak point in our defenses, repel invaders storming the walls, or take the fight to the invaders. And so, you know, thinking about what we chose for what makes this quest difficult, and for where we would like to start, I, right now, am leaning towards choosing unifying rival city factions, right? It is, you know, the early hours of the siege. The Concordat army has just arrived on the outskirts and is pressing forward. You know, their artillery is shelling the walls of Coronatus. They are firing at the beacon itself, trying to dismantle the beacon's defenses. But they have not breached the walls yet. It is early days, and the city is in disarray, right? So I'm going to choose for our first challenge, unify rival city factions. And, I think there's a couple of different groups, that we've established here that we could kind of think about as we go forward. And maybe that's what we'll kind of get to in these scenes. But my mind immediately jumps to Rebus Actual and, his criminal syndicate. It jumps to Thea Desdemona and the People's Council of Coronatus. There's drovers out there. There are Commonwealth forces inside the city who are kind of, I imagine, probably torn between fleeing and fighting, right?
That's where my mind went to.
Yeah, like pulling back to New Ravallo or trying to defend Coronatus. And there's other factions too. I think we could talk about, as we do these scenes. I'm open to other suggestions if anything comes to mind. But the first thing we do before we start a challenge is we say why it's difficult. The player who picked the challenge describes the problem that confronts the Fellowship and fleshes out the situation. Tell us what makes the challenge difficult and why we need to do it. But do not say anything about how the Fellowship will solve the problem. We leave that for scenes. So why is this challenge difficult? It is because there are multiple disparate factions with different goals and needs spread across the entire city, and none of them are in communication with each other right now. The People's Council of Coronatus is not talking to Rebus Actual, who is not talking to the Commonwealth, who is not talking to the Ring, who is not talking to the Drover. All of these groups are operating independently in their respective defenses or actions. And so the difficulty here is that no one is bringing them all together. And without a unified defense, I think that the city is almost guaranteed to fall, right? That's why we need to do it. So the player who picked the first challenge chooses which main character they think would be the first to decide how to deal with this problem. You cannot pick your own character. Just consider who in the Fellowship would take the lead for this problem. Their player will make the first scene. I think out of these three, and this kind of is looking at what you want too, right? I think it's probably Rhodes, right? I think Rhodes is probably the one who has spoken already previously about this kind of need to unify defense against the Concordat. It makes sense to me that he might be the first one to take the initiative on doing this. And when we do this, we set the pace. As a group, we decide how long we envision this challenge taking. Minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, or years. This gets everyone on the same page about how much time our scenes will encompass. I mean, I'm open to discussion. I think it's probably hours, right?
Yeah.
This is like in the early hours of the siege before
even days
they're at the walls.
Would be a stretch. Yeah, it has to be.
Yeah. This challenge, I think, has to be hours. It has to be like probably the squad maybe splitting up in some aspect to kind of reach out to their respective the groups they have ties with, trying to kind of like bring together a defense against the city.
Yeah.
We now move on to, this is like the meat of the game, which is scenes. Each player is going to make one scene for the challenge. The person chosen by the player who picked the challenge makes the first scene. So it'll be Rhodes this time. Followed by the player on their left, and then moving around the table clockwise. We will make, play, and finish each scene before starting the next. Like I said, scenes are the meat of our game, and our scene is our spotlight time. It's our chance to explore our relationship to other characters in the Fellowship, what they think about the quest, and what we are doing to deal with the challenge. We can use scenes to lay the groundwork and put our plans into motion, but no matter what happens, we won't know if we succeed or fail at this challenge until after everyone has made a scene. We may think things are going well or poorly, but we won't learn until we get to the climax. And so to make a scene, we say who is there, where it's happening, and what is going on. Your scene should be about your main character. Other characters may be present as well, but this is your time. Don't include your own minor character. And the game also suggests to us that like 2 to 3 characters per scene is ideal. Every player doesn't have to be in every scene. And also, we can kind of hop in to take control of NPCs here, right? We're not just limited to scenes that only involve this group of characters, even though they are the leads. Obviously, there are a lot of NPCs in this world that we're going to be wanting to interact with, who we want to kind of talk to and in this instance, unify. With that said, we play to see what happens, right?
Okay.
We set up the scene. One tool I want us to keep in mind is that if we think someone has described their character succeeding at something too easily, we can always add a consequence or describe how that character's action puts another player character in danger or difficulty. Anyone can add a consequence, not just players in the scene. And if we're making a consequence, we can put our own character in danger however we want. But if we want to have this consequence fall on someone else's character, we should pitch it and then negotiate what that looks like. But consequences are a tool to make sure we all stay on the same page about what is possible, and to avoid downplaying the difficulty the Fellowship faces. And yeah, the game has like a bunch more great insight into how to set a scene, some like good advice on what a scene looks like. But we won't read that out loud, but we'll keep it in our hearts as we go forward to play out this challenge.
Okay, I think I've got enough to start on anyway, and of course I'm going to lean on you all. But I think as the title card with the Risky Standard logo, with the heavy CGI budget, kind of begins to fade and the camera opens on this movie, I think we get like a high altitude shot of kind of Ember from atmosphere. As the camera continues descending down, we can see this massive storm kind of closing in, just like we saw the last time we were on camera in Coronatus. These bulk of the storm cloud kind of approaching Coronatus from the basin from the west. And I think, like we've described it before, these kind of dark billows of the sandstorm building and I think crackling and glowing within with the kind of orange red, friction, heat lightning. And I think as the camera continues on its way down towards the surface level, we can make out more of the rooftops and cityscape of Coronatus, of course, with the beacon towering above. I think as we continue descending out of these encroaching storm fronts, we can see kind of the lumbering of these dark shapes, like I think war machines of the Concordat, and kind of gathering forces. Continuing down further, I think you can hear the kind of screaming and shouting of the people on the street. There's probably the crackle of energy weapons lancing, and probably conventional ammunition popping and hissing, explosions. I think mortar crumbling and breaking on other parts. I think if the camera kind of gets quick cuts of this, we continue as we near Low Tower, and I think probably tracing something like a communication satellite on a tall spire above. Camera following down, I think down past the surface, and we get kind of the first shots of everybody in Low Tower here. And I'm imagining, like, the pull for me anyway is like in Empire Strikes Back when they're in like Echo Base and they're the assault is happening. We're getting like those storm sirens kind of blaring in the background. You can hear muffled coming through the surface. Occasional drifts of dust motes and stuff dropping from the ceiling here as like we're hearing the muffled explosions overhead. And we come into a very bustling Low Tower, I think, crowded around the stage. The stage, of course, being the holographic kind of table that we've set out. And who's here? Rhodes is here. I think Des is here. Probably most of us, as like we kind of pull up, I think, the war table here. Flicking a switch on the stage, I think we go from whatever it's idle animation to basically a holographic rendering of Coronatus in sort of low poly display. And, so we've got Des, we've got Carta, we've got Seldom Rowe. I think and surrounding them are kind of just a crowd of familiar faces and some unfamiliar. I think you've probably got people here with, like bandages already who are kind of coming in out of the dust. I think you can taste the sand in the air, like it's coming through the vents as this rasping is all around. And I think we kind of zoom in with Rhodes around the table, and time is short. I think speaking here, maybe the three of us kind of taking stock, and I think we can see on the stage, there are like red spikes where some of the, like actual city walls are actually like under strain. I don't know if the Concordat has like broached the city wall yet. I know we've had some like artillery fire that's probably showing here as well. Like you can see from the intro, we know that the beacon's like point defense cannons are already out of commission, and you can probably see this. I'm imagining it kind of like what's that game, like Missile Command on like Atari, where it's like and we get these like kind of low definition tracking of these Concordat lancing explosions. All right, everyone, time is short here. We need to get forces into position. Desmond, Carta, kind of start moving our pieces around the board. Cogs are in good shape. Jasper's in position already. I think like there's already probably some cogs on the street, kind of at least I'm imagining Low Tower's kind of become our HQ here, more or less, or like a field office. But I think what's starting to come back in those reports are the things we've already talked about, right? Like, which is that it is breaking down because there's no kind of central authority or no kind of plan. And that, I think, is what has kind of given us this moment of pause. I think Rhodes is kind of like thinking about what's coming. Would tell you this as well, right? Like, which is, this is a classic textbook Concordat tactic. Not only are they pressing in from outside, but they're already within the city. We know that, right? So we need people on the street ready to counteract any of these kind of sleeper cells. They may look just like regular people.
They may even be in the room with us right now.
No, I don't think so. They, I think looking around, like if they were in the room with us, I think we would probably look a little more put together because I think what's here is fairly ragtag. But I think this is sort of like making a plan and moving into the next phase of this, which is like we're talking here to align, and then we are going to go press out. So this is kind of like drawing up the map, getting the plan together, and yes, and then we are pouring out into the streets.
So I think Seldom Row like looks up, right? I think Seldom is like literally plugged into the stage right now. Cables trailing from like the big like visor wrapped around her face. These black apparatus cables that are then hooked into the stage. And I think she's got like 2 keyboards in front of her, right? One on either side. She's double hacking.
Cool.
And the holographics on the stage maybe start displaying like potential, it's like logistic pathways. It's like, where could we allocate the standing ring forces that we have like access to, that we are in communication with across the city? She's running the numbers, the simulations, right? We don't have enough people to hold back the Concordat by ourselves. The ring forces are primarily concentrated in Sedge right now for the attack that never came. We won't be able to do this by ourselves.
You're right. We need armor by the west gate and the north. That's probably coming on both sides. We need a kind of armored division with as many, I think, frames as we can muster. And we need people on the ground. Desmond, it's more than likely the tip of the spear is going to push towards the pillars. Have you spoken to Thea Desdemona?
Only a brief message. Hold on. And I think that he's like pulling it up. Is there a way to like, I don't know. I feel like I'm putting like my phone down on the stage as I'm like calling her, and when she answers, like a like hologram of her comes up.
Sure.
Or maybe like we can connect to like I'm sure the, whatever council chambers have like their own holotable.
Yeah, patch them in.
I imagine it's like probably like a really grainy connection, right? Because like I think the entire system, like the entire city's like networks are under attack right now, right? Seldom Row like typing furiously, trying to like stabilize the connection as it her like holographic image kind of like appears and flickers.
Mm-hmm. Who wants to be Thea?
I can.
I mean, I guess I can probably.
I was to say, is there someone who's played them before?
Played her before?
I can do this.
Okay.
Seldom Row is now too busy hacking to offer any further insight in the scene.
Yeah. So I guess I'm asking Thea, like, what's your 20? How many council members are with you right now?
Oh, can I throw something in here?
Yeah. I thought that you Rhodes were talking. Can put something
no.
up. we're talking to Thea and was like, hey, check out this funny
Hey, thanks
video.
for getting her on.
Yeah.
Hi, Thea Desdemona. No, I would say like when we open up this comm link to Thea Desdemona, like if you're expecting the quiet office, I think it is immediately, startlingly, there is like the sound of like blast report in the background there. Like there is it's already in the pillars because we know Thea Desdemona and Ally Braithwaite are kind of like rival factions in the schism within the pillars, right? So like maybe it's already started, like there's already like civil tension inside the civil defenses.
Yeah,
I was just about to, that's what I was going to ask. How many, like I understand like, we've already known that this was going to happen based on, the bugging and spying that I've been doing. But how many council people are with you? Is it about 50-50? We're talking about 20, 30-70?
I think actually Thea doesn't have the ability to like answer that question because I think, like you said, and it's not just that there's like blasts going on behind her. I think, we see this like holograph like move out of the way briefly and you just hear like the sound of gunshots And it's Thea back. It's like, Des, we're in the council now. Where are you?
We're at Low Tower. Do you
in
have
the fiction?
any?
I don't know what Low Tower is.
Low Tower. It doesn't matter now. We're safe for now. What civil defense forces do you have with you? Are you completely alone?
I think, a pause, another round of shots, like Thea ducking back into the site. It's like, we're in the council now. We are under attack by loyalist forces. The keepers are with us, but the civil authority has sided with Braithlight. Pause.
So yeah, she's like Leia. She's pulling a blaster out of her.
Robes. She's in the counselor robes with this big hand cannon, like firing off to the side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that. Just holding this room for a minute.
She said, most of the counselors are with us. Shot. But we're not going to last long without reinforcements. What is the ring doing, Desmond? Shot.
As of this moment, we seem to be the only true ring authority, if you even want to call it that, in Coronatus right now. We are trying to rally. There's not a lot of us, but we need to... I need to get to you right now. I think Dez is like a little flustered. He kind of didn't think that, she was going to be like totally actually defending herself and shooting. I know she's not really much of a warrior, I guess.
I think at this moment, the connection cuts out.
Jesus Christ. I think he grabs his phone and he storms to whatever, the barracks. He's like getting ready to suit up.
What about the arm? Damn it, the connection's out. But we need to get to the armory before the civil authority does. If we can get there, if I know Thea Desdemona, maybe she's locked it down. It's going to be a race, because if we can get to their armor foundry, we can get that into the hands of the people before the civil authority can. I know it's in pillars, right? Let's just say
yes. And exactly. And I'm sure that Thea has some sort of override code to open up the armory. So we need to get to her right now. And he's like pretty much already gone. I think that's probably the last thing he says. He's walking, he's like getting suited up, he's putting on his, bulletproof vest, getting his like pilot suit on.
Yeah.
I think, Carter, we need to know numbers. We need to know what they have, because if we don't know those numbers, we don't know where to send people. We don't know where to, what is underprotected, where we need to be able to spread this out. Because if we don't know these numbers, we have no ability to guard our backs. We have to be able to know where people need to go. So if you can get any idea of what they have, still working with them, get that back to us as soon as you can. I know Sheldon will be able to help us with the apparatus to be able to allocate those in the best way possible. We are obviously, our backs are up against the wall, and it's going to take every ounce of, calculation that we can.
I need you off your back foot, Carta. Our goal isn't to defend. Our goal is to fight. We can't save them all. We're going to try, damn it, but we need to, look outside. Those are the numbers. We're outnumbered.
Yeah, and COGS numbers are falling as we...
Des pops back in and he goes yeah, we're going to be lucky to survive today, all right?
Yeah, I heard it. Well, you've said that enough times.
Yeah.
You seem pretty lucky to me. Zed and Bitters, we need you in the air 5 minutes ago. Load up the dart, get above, support Desmond's push to the armory. Carta, you've got the COGS. As soon as the armory's open, let's get as many of our people into frames as we can. I have a call with the frog.
I think maybe before you do that, I think in this moment, Carta, pulls Rhodes aside and goes, I can do all I can with the cog. We have Jasper doing that. But there are people who are trying to get their families out of here. And I'm not going to be the ones to stop them from trying to do that. I'll get as many people in there as I can. And I know Jasper's doing the same. But remember, not everyone's been fighting this war for hundreds of years now, man. Okay? So if they are going to leave, that's up to them. And I'm not going to keep them shielding children under falling brick walls. Those who are going to stay and fight will, and I'm going to be right there alongside them. But I'm not going to fault any person who's trying to get their children to any type of safety.
Of course not. Take Gates with you. The open palm is ready for this. That's what they've trained for.
All right, get him on the horn.
Gates.
Gates is here.
She's like, I'm in the
Gates
room.
is in the room. Gates has been here the whole time.
So maybe as you hop on a call with Rebus, Carter is like kind of taking a moment to see the outline of plans for whatever might be evacuation routes for the people who are, or at least places of slightly more security. You know, the inner sanctum of Minas Tirith kind of.
Any thoughts on like where you're taking them?
So I think we are moving past now the brief of the scene. You know, the game tells us when in doubt, end your scene earlier rather than later.
Mm-hmm.
Every scene should advance the story, but it doesn't mean we have to wrap up all the questions we raised to end our scene. If we've shown some decision being made or revealed something about a character or a situation, that's a good scene. And if we need to take some action to put what we talked about into effect, don't try to expand the scene to encompass that new situation. Either save it for later or just summarize doing it. Yeah. After we finish the meeting, I go to the bridge, sneak past the guards, and plant the demolition charges. End scene. And so I think, yeah, we should probably end there, right? On like a scene of like everyone kind of getting ready to like go out, right? You know, Desmond climbing into the Mercuria.
Well, I actually have an idea about that.
Yeah.
I think, you know, Desmond is walking up to the computer. He's like flipping switches. Zed and Bitter are, you know, getting the dart ready to go. I think he turns to Zed and Bitter and is like, hold on, I have an idea. And I think that we're going to go together to the pillars, but I'm going to have the dart carry the Mercuria and then drop it on top of
Sick.
the building.
That's tight.
Yeah, very sick. Yeah. That sounds like a great segue because the next person in scene order is you.
Me?
Yeah. So yeah, when the scene is over, the player on the left or the player who picked the first scene goes next, and then we just continue clockwise. So it'll be you and then me, and we'll end this challenge with Carta. So yeah, with that first scene finished, we now move on to the next scene. This is yours, Malcolm. And so yeah, again, you know, to make your scene, you say who is there, what is happening, where it's happening, and what is going on. So tell us about it.
I think we're still in the low tower in the very beginning of the scene. People are scrambling around. We're preparing to leave, and I think Gates is there.
Yeah, I was gonna say Gates is probably bursting in here. In my head, like the scene anyway was like, you know, you're connecting the cables and stuff to the Mercuria. Zed and Bitters kind of like in the aerolift are already kind of at a hover as like
we're just about to get the you know, like I feel like the ceiling like opens up enough for the aerolifter to pull out, so we're about to have like a really dramatic moment of, you know, the ceiling sort of like sliding open, you know, the sounds of war and sand blowing in.
Yeah, it's chaotic, right? Like,
well, I think Gates comes up to Dez.
Oh, for sure, right? Like, and this
Yeah.
is, so I'm imagining the scene in my head.
Come on, work with me,
sorry,
Pete. Come
okay,
on.
okay, all right, we're playing. Yes, and yes, and the thought in my head is like, you know, we've talked about it before with Dez kind of like having this climb up the side of the Mercuria, and I'm imagining Dez like on these like ladder rungs on the side of the Mercuria as it's like pulling away. When I think Gates, dashes through the door, right? Like it's supposed to be with Carta by now, but is like Desmond, you know, calling down, and it's loud, right? Like the wind swirling, right?
I think he hops down and walks over. You know, he's like, I have to go. I don't know what could you possibly need right now.
It's not just down to luck, Des. There's bigger things than just this war.
Gates, I'm going to fight for my city. To fight and yes, perhaps die. So that young people from here to Sedge can feel the wind of freedom blowing through their hair or their horns or whatever they have.
And I think Gates, in this like moment, I think leaps kind of towards you and I think throws his arms around you.
Her?
Gates is a girl? I thought Gates was...
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Gates throws her arms around you. Writing that down. And I think, you know, even kind of running a finger around your big bat ears, right, pulls you in.
And she's like 9 inches taller than me too.
Right, yeah. And I think just plants a kiss on you, right? And is like, don't fight to die, fight to live.
And I think he nods. He then gets back up, starts climbing up into the cockpit, sits down, straps in. You know, the bubble of the cockpit sort of closes down in on him, and then we hear the door opening, the low rumble of the motors churning, the sand's coming in now. The aerolifter is warming up, and it's lifts up and flies off into the sky.
Yeah, I think we get you can just see the
And we
camera
see-
cut down.
Yeah, exactly. Cuts down, and
one
Gates is looking
person,
up,
yeah.
and then the ceiling starts to close again. I think we're flying through the air now, and who actually flies it, and then who is like, do they both fly it?
Zed flies.
Zed is flying, and he's dodging. There's flying projectiles through the air, and maybe not just missiles. Like there's huge debris and stuff being whipped up. Rooftops and maybe even other aircraft that's like lost control. We're seeing helicopters.
Oh yeah, stuff careening.
Yeah.
Doing
I think
that thing.
there's big cargo lift stuff in the air. Like you're seeing in air, probably like dogfight, machine gun fire from craft to craft.
Exactly.
These
There's
Concordat flyers.
tracer rounds flying everywhere, and it's very stressful. And we don't have that far to go. I think he's saying he's like, Bitter's his co-pilot. He's like, hold on. Could you pull up a more precise location? And I think there's like a HUD display on the that sort of projects onto the windshield or whatever. And I think there's probably like some sort of like beacon, but then it like narrows in. It's like, okay, we got to go lower. They get a little bit lower. They get below all of the artillery and stuff from up top, and they're flying in over the city council headquarters and the pillars. I feel like, is there like how is that building shaped? Is it in my mind there's like a giant courtyard in the middle of it?
There's a big courtyard with all of these massive pillars that are running along its length, which is where it gets its name from. And then the actual building is like a domed amphitheater, right? Like the council meetings take place in the amphitheater, and then like there's kind of like an annex attached to that is like the offices and the And just to throw it out there, to add a little like complication, I think as you're getting closer, you can see that there is like open fighting outside.
Oh yeah,
in like the leading towards the amphitheater. There are Concordat troops, a handful of them, presumably this like early strike force, who are fighting alongside members of the Coronatus civil authority, like the police force of Coronatus, right? In these, I think, like, I can't remember who said like the colors of like the Coronatus, the civil authority before. I imagine it's like a gold and blue, probably.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they have these like quadrupedal mechs that are usually like, they're like riot police mechs, right? They have like non-lethal like turrets underneath them that fire like rubber bullets or like tasers. Some of these have been refitted with lethal weaponry. But I think there's like a smaller force defending the actual, like the council building, right? There is like active fighting happening here right now.
I imagine like they're pulling in. Zed turns to Bitter, gives a little nod. Bitter goes, over the comm to Des, like, it's like, all right. He has a southern accent, right? I forget which one does. He's like, all right, disconnecting 10 tethers in T minus 10 seconds. That what a nice little alliteration there.
2, 3,
4, 5. Well, and then there's 6.
That's all right.
and then Zed comes in and finishes out the counting. I like them as yokels.
Yeah. And I think they're pulling in, and it reaches 1. The tethers let go, somewhere above like the dome. I think that's where Dez is landing. Maybe like just on one side of the dome, and like Dez is breathing very heavy, and it's coming down to this moment. I don't think the Mercury has ever fallen quite like this in this situation, and it does not really well, we can say we've added a mobility suite for this one.
Yeah, I was going to say,
we're not playing
I think
Beam Saber, so now we have a little bit of a cushion or whatever to fall. So it lets go, and then for a moment, he feels in the pit of his stomach, enough time that we've kind of reached terminal velocity, and he feels like really kind of sick, that free falling feeling, and then slamming down into the dome.
Oh man, you got that cool arm we grafted onto that?
Yeah.
You got to do a superhero landing right
I
here.
gotta do superhero landing, slamming. What is it? The right hand? Yeah, the right arm's like Spider-Man.
The Caesura arm.
Oh yeah.
And he lands onto the dome. Does it break through?
Yeah. Yes. I'm
I
saying
think it
yes.
does break through.
You said you just hit terminal velocity and you're
Hits
like
terminal
multi-ton.
velocity, and he swings that arm down and smashes through enough to break apart. Probably, the dome has probably already taken some damage, so he's just
For sure.
free falling into the the main.
I'm thinking of it was like the Parthenon, where it's like the big
Yeah.
dome ceiling and it's just like vaulted columns around
Mhm.
or vaulted roof. And I
Yeah.
think very
Into the
sick.
pillars.
We get like the hole in the roof. It's like a spotlight on the Mercuria. Light
Yes.
opens up.
Yes.
And I think in here for a second, like you can hear the report of gunfire like around, but you're in this like round rotunda, quiet for a moment, right? Like it's probably people scattered when they heard the roof creaking and groaning.
Who is that where Thea is?
I think that the Mercuria falls down, right? You like superhero land in the center of this like council like amphitheater. I think that there is an active gunfight happening in here, which is, I think, up in like the stands, right? Like overturned tables. There is Thea Desdemona, and there are a handful of these keepers of the lighthouse, the military force of Coronatus, wearing, I think, kind of like this like kind of a burnt sienna, like this dark orange color to their armor, right? Each of them emblazoned with like a sigil of a lighthouse, right? The symbol of their military order. And I think they are all kind of, like up in the stands. They are scattered, kind of around there. They're firing down. Thea is like kind of shouting commands. I think there are a handful of civil authority troops, a handful of like Concordat troopers in here, returning fire. And I think that there is one person wearing like flowing slate gray robes. They are walking barefoot across the floor towards the keepers of the lighthouse, the People's Council forces. And I think, what do they have in their hand? Is it like it's like a big hammer, right? Mm-hmm. They have a hammer.
This is a paladin. Yeah.
Yes, this is a paladin. This is a thaumaturge of the Concordat. And I think, they swing that hammer, like not at a person near them, but a person across the room. But there is like a force that travels, and you see one of the keepers of the lighthouse be struck by it. And as they are being like, they're struck by the force, they're thrown through the air. And as you see them moving through the air, you see the armor around them solidifying into like gray stone, like slate. And by the time that this like trooper like hits the wall, they shatter. They've turned into statuary.
Oh, fuck.
And this thaumaturge is marching towards where Thea and the other defenders are at, and stops only to like turn and look, cool, casual at the armor that has just arrived. And I think they square up with this hammer.
Damn, that's a serious dude if he's facing down a machine like without armor of his own.
Yeah. Yes.
Damn, listener, that's crazy.
Des has never seen anything like this before, and he is shook for certain. I think he gets on his feet and charges at this paladin. I don't think he really has any choice. This is clearly the biggest threat in the room, and can turn people into stone and smash it. So I think Des is like running towards him.
In the machine, or are you getting out?
In the machine. Oh, come on, Pete. What am I going to do? I got a giant robot. I'm not going to face off against this alone. And then the paladin probably swings the hammer at me.
Yeah, or it's I imagine like the paladin like slams the hammer into the ground, and the stone, like the ground underneath the Mercuria, becomes unstable, right?
Oh, okay.
Like trips up the Concordat as it trips up the Mercuria as it's charging,
Oh yeah, like quicksand or something. Like is that what you mean?
Oh yeah, the stone
sick.
becomes liquid underneath, right? Yeah, like
whoa, yeah. It disturbs like fundamentally disturbs the like
atomic structure,
atomic structure, so that it becomes kind of liquefied.
You're slowed.
I'm slowed down. Maybe unleash fire. Like I'm stuck, but whatever, the 10 mil machine gun pops out, or 50 cal machine gun pops out and starts firing at the paladin.
rat-tat-tat-tat-tat, like across the floor here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I imagine, right, this is the Concordat. This is like, we're getting the first taste of their strange magic. This is a thaumaturge. I think this person is like on foot, moving quickly enough to try and bob and weave around these shots, right? Is like, doesn't get another swing in because they're too busy like dancing around these things. It's bringing up curtains of stone from the ground that like block volleys. Is dancing around these shots and is advancing like with every break in the fire, advancing closer with the hammer held, like clearly moving in to try and strike the Mercuria and end this in a single blow.
I think that as he is coming to swing in with the hammer, right, he reaches out with his fist, the Caesura arm, the big arm, starts swinging, and then, I think the paladin is like, oh, you fool, I've got you,
Mm-hmm.
And then as the hammer is coming towards his fist, he speeds up and keeps swinging, and the paladin maybe loses footing a little bit, right? And like thought he was going to make contact, loses his balance a little bit, and kind of like turns over. And then as that's happening, Dez is like the upper torso of the Mercury is completely swinging around to do a 360 to like punch him as he's losing his footing, right? Yeah. And he hits him and he knocks him like way across the council, smashes into a bunch of seats. There's like wood and stuff flying around. And I imagine he's like, Dez during that time is like pulling himself out of the ground and like regaining his feet and moving forward. And, the paladin is probably like getting up like Jason Voorhees.
Yeah. Can I tell you, can I pitch like how that ends?
Yeah.
I think the paladin is getting up like Jason Voorhees, is like eyes blazing, right? Like blood coming out of his mouth, like reaching down to grab the hammer again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's Thea who steps up from behind him, holding the hand cannon, right?
Nice.
Like point blank, fires, execution style from behind.
Damn. Ugh.
And then there's like a burst of fire as the keepers of the lighthouse like tear through the remaining forces here who've been distracted by this exchange. And it's just Thea standing there with like the smoking gun barrel, like Desmond.
Like door opens. He's like, we got to get out of here.
She shakes her head.
What do you mean?
We are the council now. If you're here to help, you're welcome to join us. But we are leading the defense of Coronatus, and we're doing it from here.
Well, all right then.
And there's another. We can hear another burst of shells outside, gunshots. If you're here to help, Desmond, I'll take that help. If you've got your friends here to help with you, they're welcome to throw in with us. But this is Coronatus, keeping Coronatus safe. Do we understand each other?
Oh, I think we understand each other, but we need more resources, always, but especially right now. I know Coronatus Civil Defense Force has an armory that is well equipped and well stocked for situations like this. And I know you know how to open the vault.
I think she smiles and says like, we've got more guns than people to use them. We'll take any help you can give, but it's our orders.
Fair enough.
And then I think he probably comes forward and hugs Desmond, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like a business dealt with. Here's a chance to like, in the dangerous last few hours of the city of Coronatus, you're her brother.
I think also like whatever, Desmond, maybe this is a good place to wrap up the scene, but Desmond is getting into the Mercuria and he walks over and with his arm picks up the hammer and kind of looks
Nice,
at
yeah,
it.
sure.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
I like that. I think that's a good scene.
Yeah, that was cool. Thrilling.
Yes, that's Des. So that is me next. Carter, you're gonna close this off. Okay. I think I know what my scene is. Seldom Row, Rhodes Rampart. Because Seldom Row and the apparatus are both aware of the fact that Rebus Actual has an extensive surveillance network of the entire city.
Mm-hmm.
Like Rebus's sort of like surveillance mechanisms are deeply embedded across all of Coronatus in a way that even the apparatus is not, or is like they're at least like like close to equal to each other, and they are also extremely secure. The apparatus can't just break into them. We need to. What's happening here is that we are traveling to Rebus Actual to convince him to join us in defending of the city, but also give us access to his networks. Which is like that. That's why this is difficult, right? Is because that's like the last thing the world Rebus Actual probably wants to do is like let the apparatus into his network. So I think we are, it's you, me, you, Rhodes, Seldom, I think Eleanor Fade, and I think we are above ground, I think.
Yeah, I was imagining this is like a converted, like there are probably light rails crisscrossing the city, just like buses getting around, and maybe this is
Oh yeah, I think maybe before Eleanor Fade was part of the ring, maybe they worked a little bit municipal jobs, like knows
Sure.
how to be like, well, drove a few trains in my life. I think I could figure out how to make some of these work. Screwdriver into ignition, knows how to twist it so that I can take this wherever we need to go now.
And you've got like seldom, probably like the apparatus is controlling the switchboard, right? So you're like taking routes that aren't.
I think I have, and we get to see this, right? It's like maybe the camera comes in on this, right? Is like we are in this converted trolley is like moving through the streets of Coronatus along these rails. Normally Seldom Rose wearing these robes and has like just like this big like visor. I think that you can see now, like I've got like kind of almost like a harness on, or like a tactical piece that is like a smaller version of this like a kinetic like flipping like engine that's in my lab. That is like attached, like that I'm wearing, and I think that there are more of these like apparatus cables, right, that are like snaking out from under my sleeves. And I think like as we are going, right, like I am diverting, like changing like the rail line. I'm thinking a lot about like if you guys ever played like what are the games with Watch Dogs? Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
It's like a Ubisoft game, but like you do a lot of like hacking in them where you can like change like the street lights or like blow up transformers. And I think that I am doing something like that as we travel actively, right? Like cars are like veering out of the way as we approach them to make like to clear the street for us.
Bollards are like going up in front of where we're going.
Yeah, blocking
I love that.
streets off as we're going.
And I usually hate a backseat driver, but
and I think I am like standing kind of like one hand, like standing next to Eleanor Faye, like one hand on her shoulder, speaking without looking at Rhodes. And I think I say something to the effect of like, can you convince the frog to let us into his system? We can't see enough of what's happening in the city without it.
I warned him once, we'll convince him one way or the other. And he's like, I'm going on top. And I think climbing out of the side of this window, like I'm going to sidle up onto the top of this with some sort of like mounted, machine gun or something. As we're kind of like barreling through town here, I think like taking pot shots at anybody in white armor. He'll listen. He owes me. What?
He needs. I don't know. That's not how I would call it relationship, actually. But I think as we get closer to the Shade District, as we approach where the Lost Crown is, we can start to see more evidence of like fighting on the streets, right? But I think we start seeing bodies in the blocks surrounding the Lost Crown that are not Concordat troops, and they are not civil authority troops. It is primarily Chiropterans, I think, in like dark tactical gear, and I think we see on some of their armor it is the sigil of like the one-eyed bat over a moon. These are Night Flyer Syndicate bodies.
Jesus Christ.
And as we like kind of like come into view, right, I think we turn a corner and there is, this big red brick building, the former armory that is now the Lost Crown Saloon. And I think like there are like these guys in maroon uniforms, like the Lost Crown Saloon's guards, who are like in an open firefight against Night Flyer Syndicate members, right? There are these Chiropterans who are assaulting the Lost Crown. They're trying to gain entrance. And I think it is like a little bit of a mess. I think we get fired upon as we approach, right? At first, like the guards start firing on us as if we are just another member of the Night Flyer Syndicate. And I think you hear like the voice from above, like this croaking voice, "Hold fire, hold fire!" And we can see standing on like the edge of the roof, holding, I think, like a big ornate rifle is like in these like flowing robes is Rebus Actual, right? He's like in his silk kimono, standing on the edge of the roof with a rifle, taking pot shots down at the Night Flyer Syndicate.
As we pull up, Eleanor is able to kind of do a little spin out and knock a couple Night Flyers with the back of the train, the trolley car that we're using, sending them.
Oh yeah, I was mentioning this just like as we pull into whatever Twilight Station here.
E-brake as it just like
blowing through barricades.
Yeah.
And so we screech into this square, knocking down some of these. I think that they're starting to be kind of diminished, right? It seems like the fighting is dying down here, but it's clear, like based on the number of bodies between like the black clad Night Flyer Syndicate members and the maroon clad guards of Rebus Actual. There was like a big fight here that is just now kind of wrapping up. And then, I think we go from that, the sight of Rebus, like standing over at the side of the building with this huge rifle, and we can just cut, right? We got full control of the camera, baby. I think we cut to, we're inside Rebus's manor up top, right? In his like big, like half glass house, like room, right? He has placed this, huge rifle on like the long table where that last we saw was covered in the feast that he served the squad. I think the giant like stone person Kylaxian guard of his named River is like standing right behind him. I think he's got like some scrapes, right? There's maybe like a fresh bandage on like a shot must have grazed his cheek during this fight. He looks a little haggard, but I think he still like gestures, and I think some of the like butlers and maids like roll out with a much diminished selection of food from last time, and I think he turns to Rhodes, Seldom, and Eleanor, and it looks like you were right when it comes to the defense of Coronatus. The threat was more imminent than I had considered.
I was going to ask you to help me settle a bet, but it sounds like you've arrived at your own conclusion.
And I think he like Rebus leans back, and he picks up like a glass of wine that's been laid before him, and he takes a long drink. Our mutual friends with the Night Flyer Syndicate seem to have thought that the conditions of siege would create an opening here at the Lost Crown. They were wrong.
Well, in Foray, when a player has advantage, they have two options. They can wait it out, see if the elimination comes from other opponents, or they can push ahead to victory.
What do you think I should do here, Rhodes Rampart? Why have the generous defenders of the ring come to the Lost Crown in this hour of plight? Surely your efforts would be better used manning the walls?
I think looking around, Rhodes points at some of these glass panels that are like full of melt holes from blaster fire and cracked and probably pocked with bullet marks. That's quite a question coming from a man surrounded in glass walls. How long do you think you can hold out here? Probably another explosion like rips through the city.
Yeah, good. There are two roads laid out before me.
I'm one of them.
But I could throw in with the defense. I assume that's why you're here, right? You want to ask me to lend you my guard? It looks at Seldom Row. Give you access to my own networks. Get a peek under the curtain. Or I could wait. From what I understand of the Concordat playbook, they like to have people on the inside. There's a lot I could offer the new rulers of our city. Do you think you can win?
I know we can. This battle's played out in 1,000 worlds. It doesn't matter if we win here. It's about an opportunity. And I think with like pointing back, I think again towards this beacon, which I think towering above us, even here, I think you can see it kind of cutting into the sky. There are probably kind of like a swarm of aerolifters in dogfight, right? Like Zed and Bitter's among them, but there's probably a lot of activity happening around the beacon. And I think pointing to it, Rebus, do you think they're going to let you out of Coronatus? Do you think they'll let you out of your little kingdom here? You don't strike me as a man content with only one lily pad.
And I think we can see Rebus Actual like mulling this over. And as that's happening, I think like our camera shows a cable of the apparatus like snaking out of Seldom Row's seat, like arriving, I think like making contact with Rhodes's arm. And when it does, I think that there's like a link established, like a private comms channel, right? Seldom's voice in your, not in your ears, in your own mind, right? Rhodes. And I think Seldom says, I can sense the shape of his network. The control node is in this manner. We don't need him alive. We just need access to it.
I think just like a half-second turn over his shoulder, acknowledging, and I think probably swallowing hard.
And I think, Rebus is speaking right now, but the camera doesn't get what he's saying. He's just bloviating. He's equivocating. He's talking about, his desires to see the stars again and his love for Cor. And, he's kind of still walking the line. And I think right now, like our audio is geared, like that's just like peanuts murmur, like the parents in the background,
Mhm.
right? Wah, wah. And it is, seldom again in Rhodes, like in this private connection to Rhodes. I can take care of the Kylaxian. Can you handle the guards?
I think like we probably get camera on. I love this idea, like the din there of the conversation, and I think Rhodes' hand probably pulls, coat jacket aside towards the pistol at his hip. I think hand kind of tremoring right over it, and I think probably like unclasps the buckle, and I think maybe fingering the holster, not really listening to what Rebus is saying. I think draws, but not like straight at him, but I think just kind of holding the gun at his hip. Probably repeat, Rebus. In foray, when a combatant has advantage, they have two options. They can wait for other contestants to pick each other off, or they can press the advantage.
Eleanor is up behind Rebus, gun also pointed, and I think we have the advantage right now.
You're like drawing guns on Rebus? I'm sorry, I'm making sure.
Is that what you're doing?
I'm not like drawn, but it's there, and I think like the subtext.
Okay, it's not at the
like,
head. Maybe it's also kind of at the hip.
You've just like readied a pistol, right, or readied a rifle or something. I think you can just kind of hear the sound of like gunmetal shifting as I think the tensions are palpably increasing. I think even in the like head chatter with Seldom's let's just give him a chance.
And I think Seldom Row produces this like right, it is like this black hexagonal apparatus seed, right? It's probably like 5 inches tall. I think she places it on the table and she says aloud now, "This will give us access to your networks. It'll integrate them into the apparatus. It'll let us together organize defense of the city. Let us see what's happening and respond in real time." And I think we get Rebus actual looking at it. I think we get like a cut to, like the Rhodes and Eleanor both with their guns like in hand. And then I think we cut, right? That's probably the end of the scene.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right? We don't know if we've succeeded or failed until the challenge is over.
I like it.
Which means we have one more scene in this challenge. Carta, do you have your scene ready? What are you doing?
Yes. So I think it could be at Low Tower if other people have a more exciting or different place we want to explore. It can be set there, but it is Carta, Jasper, Gates Technic. And I think it starts with them discussing the numbers they have. And Carta and Jasper are standing looking over, the gathering of COG members, their families, other people who aren't even a part of COG, who weren't a part of the work they were doing in the urban renewal zone, but are the people of Coronatus trying to figure out what they're going to do in this war.
Can I pitch something?
Sure.
What if it's the training grounds that we built? Right.
Oh yeah.
Right. So it's like we're like in Wormtown, right? We're in like underground in the this like militia training ground that has been turned into like a shelter basically.
Yeah. And I think that it's I think about it in the Alamo, drawing the line in the sand. Anyone who wants to fight, we are lucky to have you. This city is lucky to have you. Do you believe in it this much that you would stay here and maybe die for it? That is incredible. I also do not fault anyone who wants to get their families to safety. We have abilities to do that too. But I ask you to look into your hearts. What safety will there be when Coronatus falls? If we let them come in here and turn it to dust, what do you come home to?
Imber was built on ruins, scrabbled together from what's left over and cast aside. Gratch, Luctorian, Vaginoi, human, Chiropteran before them. They came here as farmers, workers, refugees, idealists. And as they worked the dust to stone, they became kin. Our kin. You're my kin. I was born in the basin, from the dust itself. Come what may today, to the dust we may return, but I will not be cast aside. You're safe here as long as these walls are standing. Don't fight for Coronatus, fight for each other. Not for the chance at victory, but at least in defiance of their arrogance. They think they can take it from you. The blood you spilled building this city, the sandstone around you, made from that same dust. Fight with us. I'm Gates Technic, by the way.
We might not have the weapons they have, but we do have tools at hand. So, Grenfield surveyors, collectors of, the cleaners of this city, we have machines that we can use to fight against them. And it would be foolish for us to let those go to the waste. Let's hit them with all that we have.
And I think you can probably start to hear there's like murmurings, I think, in this crowd that's gathered here. And I think people start standing up and walking over to Carta. Not just the cogs. I mean, I think Jasper's here too. And there's like the regulars, right, of our rooks and our toughs, the cogs who kind of come along. But I think not just the ones you'd expect, but their friends, the kind of passing faces you'd sort of recognize. I think in this training ground, this like kind of fortified underground area, along one wall, I think there are probably like the kind of like lifters and construction frames and like tractor trailers, like they're, the garbage trucks, anything that's like kind of been requisitioned or stolen or hot wired or gone missing from a shipping manifest in the last like 8 months is stored here. And I think you can even like, as we kind of camera pan across the speech from Carta, like you can see where these more industrial machines have had modifications, right? There's like a Caesura rifle, I think like soldered onto the side of like a garbage truck, right? Mm-hmm. Or, I think like these kind of construction, I'm thinking of like Ripley's thing in Aliens, like these, kind of big yellow caterpillar looking exoframes have had everything they can find kind of tacked onto. I think like you're seeing stuff that has a pretty pedestrian use that's like armored up with like street signs and corrugated metal. There are, maybe there's like, I don't know, anybody else got anything cool here? Like
city buses with the top sawed off so that you can have a bunch of people on top. I think that also, again, because it's not just COG members now, it is people who work for various different companies, like the people who are maybe like, work the freight yards, who work at who work the loading docks, who are kind of have been left behind by the people, in power above them, who are now like going like, yeah, I can get us back into our shipping yard. I think I can get us some gear from there, and I guess that's the unifying of different things. Again, it's not just COG members. It's the people who have worked for various different powerful city families or these corporations that have hundreds of workers under them who have kind of been left in the dust
quite literally.
Right.
I think Jasper comes up to Carta during after this, this kind of round of speech making. These people are like milling around. They're like kind of trying, kind of gathering into groups. And I think Jasper kind of pulls Carta aside slightly and gives him like a very serious look. Do you remember Quint Selector?
I do. I didn't do right by him then.
I think Jasper kind of, gestures across this room. You're looking at a room full of him right now. Eager, excited, and not remotely skilled enough to deal with the problem that we are facing. You send all of these people out there to fight. I'm there, Carta. I trust you. I believe in you. These are not soldiers. And the thing that's for coming down on this city is not Grenfield. It's bigger, it's badder, it's scarier. There's still time on the clock. We got tunnels. We got ways of getting out of here. I grew up in Coronatus. I love Coronatus, but I don't need to die defending it.
You have no choice, Sam.
There's a city out in the desert they call Sedge. We could leave here, we could regroup, we could rally, we could mount a real counterattack. I'm just saying, before we send... and I think he gestures, right, to one of these, it's like a taxi cab, right, with like a 50 cal gun mounted on the front.
There's a Toyota Tacoma there, actually, somehow, with a machine gun on the back.
Space and time, yeah. If you say fight, I'm here fighting with you, but I want you to... I've spent the last 3 months of my life training with you. I've learned a lot more about fighting than I ever did before. I'm scared shitless right now. How do you think these people are going to feel once they're out there and bombs start dropping?
The bombs are dropping.
I think Carta maybe puts its hand out to the idealist Gates. I mean what I said, Jasper. Anyone who wants to leave the city, we have the ability to do. And anyone who wants to stay and fight can do that. You have trained alongside me, and I trust you. I know there are people out there who can be trained. It will be quick. But we will pick our best as the front line. And we can use whatever hand we have to support us from behind. those are our options. I meant it when I said whoever needs to leave can do that. I hope it's not you.
Yeah, I think he puts a hand on your shoulder and he says, Cog's here for the long haul. I'm in for this. But don't lie to yourself that it's whatever people want to do. You tell them here to stay and fight. You tell them you're staying and fighting. They're gonna stay and fight. Nobody wants to be a coward. Nobody wants to be the one who ran away. And I think he takes his hand off your shoulder and then, it looks like meaningfully at you to see if you're gonna change your mind. And I'm assuming Carta is not just deciding to run. I think Jasper starts gathering the most like senior other members of COG and starts to like divide them up, right? Like, each as like leaders to different, like, these new makeshift squads that are starting to form amongst the people here who are ready or willing to fight.
Yeah, I think because with the the scar, I think that the hollowness in him makes him feel a little who am I to decide anything? Like everything that I had worked for my entire life. But I think he doesn't need to. There's no more addressing the crowd about like stay and fight, leave if you want to. He just starts again, and I don't know all of the way to do this, but instead it is just talking about what they're doing. We're going to be on the wall. We need people here. If they're coming in from the west entrance, let them come to us, and allowing just, and removing out, not wah-wah, but it is the shot of him with Jasper by his side, Gates technique, each person just going into this is the plan of attack. There's no more, those who are going to stay and fight will do it. And to give them the breakdown of what we are doing, hopefully is the thing that goes, right, there is a plan. And if that's what we have to do, that's what we have to do.
I think Gates would probably chime in here too, right? And it's like, I'm not here to fight a war, but there are more of us, and they are under siege right now. And Gates is pushing forward in a rescue effort. There are like other people who would seek shelter who cannot, right? And so it's like, if not fighting for the win, like we're fighting to help more people. I think, even adding on, it's like, you're right. There's like a warm bed and hot food in Sedge, maybe for a couple more weeks, but the Concordat will reach there. You may be able to get away now, but our best effort is protect our people.
Is that the end here? Is there anything else?
Yeah, I think that's the end.
So with the last scene ended, we go on to finish the challenge. After every player has made one scene for the challenge, we see if the Fellowship succeeded or failed. If this is the third challenge, follow the second set of instructions to determine the outcome of the entire quest. So we're going to draw stones to determine the outcome and then narrate the results. Sometimes the outcome will surprise us, but even when it's not what we wanted or expected, it's our job to explain it. Interpreting these unexpected results can push our story in exciting new directions we wouldn't have thought of on our own. So, for the first challenge, we start with no stones in our pool. And then we're going to add one white stone and one red stone. And so normally the way this would work in the game is that at the end of this, we would have a pile of mixed red and white stones. Then we would reach in, we would draw them one at a time, and we would display them. We obviously are all four of us are in different cities spread across the country and have no easy way of drawing out of a shared bowl of stones. So instead, we are going to count up the number of red and white stones we have, then assign them to sides of a dice, and we will roll a dice to kind of determine our final result here. And so, with that said, we start with no stones in the pool, and then we add one red and one white. And I'll say here, white stones are going to be good for us. Red stones are going to be bad for us. So each player takes 2 red stones. If your main character is unhappy about the path the Fellowship has taken, hold 1 red stone. If your main character actually wants the quest to fail, hold 2 red stones. Otherwise, hold no red stones. And so, if you're unhappy, you're going to have 1 red stone here. If you actually want this quest to fail right now, you're going to have 2. Otherwise, you're going to have none. Any red stones that we have after this, we will then add to the pool. Maybe we can start, since you ended it, Carta, maybe we can start with you, and then we'll go left down this order. So Carta, Rhodes, Desmond, and then Seldom Row. Do you need a moment to think, or do you guys want to start going?
Honestly, I think I'm holding no red stones because there isn't a unhappy about this. It is what is going to happen. And he has seen it come together before his eyes. And in that there is some hope and also fear, but he is not unhappy because the people who are staying to fight. And the people who are leaving are doing what they need to do too.
What about you, Rhodes?
No redstones. I want this to work. I need it to.
Desmond?
No redstones.
And then I think I will echo here right now. At least for now, Seldom Row is similarly. It feels like we're on the right path. So I will hold no red stones either. So right now we still just have one red, one white. So now the third step. Each player takes one white and one red. As a player, not as your character, but as a player, do you think the Fellowship did what was necessary to succeed at the challenge? And a reminder here, our challenge is unify rival city factions. Hold white if yes, hold red if no. And I think we can go in the same order here right now. Carta, as a player, sorry, not Carta, Tim.
As a player, I think I gotta hold my redstone. It's a big city, and we talked to the people that we know in the city. There's a lot of powers out there that I don't know how we would have done it, but I also think that like we went back to our factions that are kind of on our side already.
Peter, how many stones are you holding? Are you holding white? You holding red? As a player, do you think that we did what was necessary to succeed at the challenge?
I'm going to go red because we didn't talk to the Commonwealth at all.
Malcolm, as a player.
I think I'm going to hold my white stone because I think you guys are right, but I think that we're trying the best we can. We don't really know the Commonwealth that well. We have a pretty bad relationship with them.
That's true. They hate you.
Yeah,
I figure, so there wasn't really anything to bring together there, and if we were to try, we probably would have failed anyway. So I think that we're trying the best that we can, and I'm going to give us props for that one.
I think you also did do the most reach out to a different faction, having
Yes,
Dia and
yes.
the light keepers, the
keepers of the lighthouse.
So I think
defense force,
any
etc.
contact with them too was nice,
Yeah.
and that will show in as we progress.
It's tricky. I could go either way on this, honestly. So we reached out to Rebus Actual. We reached out to Keepers of the Lighthouse, and we tried to solidify kind of like the independence. I'm going to go with Malcolm here, actually. I think we got the Coronatus military, and we got Rebus, and then we got, in theory, the people of the Coronatus, right? Which I think there are other groups we could have approached. I think those are the three most powerful we could have gotten on our side. So I'm going to say I'm going to hold white, which means that we are perfectly split. There are 3 red stones in the pool. There are 3 white stones in the pool. So I think, Pete, you were the first one who set a scene for this challenge. Why don't you roll the first d6? And I will say 1 through 3 is red. 4 through 6 is white. And we will draw the first stone by rolling a 1d6.
So can you kind of spell this out again? So the conditions we're looking for here are going to be, we're rolling essentially to determine whether or not this worked on a basis of what we've put up so far.
We're going to draw 2 stones, and we won't know the color of them until we draw them. If we draw 2 white stones in a row, we win the challenge. We have succeeded in unifying the rival city factions. If we draw a red stone and then a white stone, we will lose 1 character, but we will win the challenge still. If we draw a white stone first and then draw a red stone, we're going to lose 1 character and we're going to lose this challenge. If we draw 2 red stones, a character betrays or is betrayed by the Fellowship and is lost. And we lose the challenge. And we will figure out fictionally together what that looks like here. But first, we have to draw these 2 stones. And so to draw the first stone, you're going to roll 1d6.
Mm-hmm.
A result of 1, 2, or 3 is going to be red. A result of 4, 5, or 6 is going to be white.
Rolling 1d6.
I'm so tense right now.
It's a 6.
That's white.
Whew.
So we have 1 white stone. Now we'll draw our second stone. Do you want to roll again for us, Pete? So this is going to be a d5 now, because we have removed a white stone from the pool. So 1 through 3 will be red. 4 and a 5, white.
Okay.
So roll 1d5.
Rolling 1d5.
That's also white.
Whew. Oh boy.
So
we succeed.
We succeed. 2 white stones means that we have succeeded at our challenge.
Ooh. The heart was in my throat for a second there. This is only the first one, too.
So we can kind of just paint with a narrative brush here, what it means to us to have succeeded, right? So we unified rival city factions. And so I think we should, be brief, kind of have a light touch here. But, I think maybe we get, I'm just going to jump in and we can kind of like riff on it a little bit. But we cut back to that tense moment of like guns drawn in Rebus Actual's manor house, the apparatus seed sitting on the table. And then I think we get a shot of Rebus, his webbed hand reaching forward and grabbing it. And then we cut to like an image of the stage. It's this map of Coronatus with all of these data points. And then suddenly the image like improves. Suddenly new data points start showing up all over the map. We got like suddenly we go from like these big blocky chunks of color describing an area that the Concordat might be into to like individual little mini map dots of units moving through the streets.
Sick.
Rebus has given us access to his surveillance network.
Oh, nice. The stage just got a restored, remastered 4K high definition.
And, that's like, I think, one image we get, right, of this success, right? Where, does anybody else have like an image here they want to like?
Oh, I mean, yeah. I am like dying to find out what's going on with the Mercuria and Thea Desdemona in the council chambers. Like, I like that we left all of these scenes like on the decision point, which was like Rhodes, Rebus, like what's he gonna do? Thea Desdemona and Desmond, like you guys ended this paladin, and then what happens? Is it like quick beat, like we get to cut to the vault where she's punching the key card in or something?
Yeah, I think so. I think we left on that note, that uncertainty, because this is a big question for her, whether she's going to, I think that I also get in touch with Carta, the cogs and the other, civilians or whatever are being forced into this position, but we're all congregating here now that we've cleared a path. And yeah, Thea's punching in the the code to the armory. Where is the armory? It's in the basement of the...
Is this the activated statuary part? Tim's Abraham Lincoln mech in the pillars?
Whoa. I mean...
Because I always imagined the pillars in Coronatus' like city government being like this colonnade going up a hill leading to this Parthenon. Mm-hmm. And like these huge pillars are like 7 stories high, and they're dotted with like statues of like leaders in Coronatus past, Chiroptes or whatever. Mm-hmm. And is it like, it's not just the armory, like those are part of the defense?
Yeah, I think there's a moment where she's like, well, I mean, it's already here. And Des like, what are you talking about? She's like, don't you understand? The whole city is the armory.
Nice.
And you're like, the statues like come to life and like step down off of the pillars and like kneel, and like their chests open and there's like a cockpit inside.
Oh, that's tight. For the listener at home, we put a wish list together for what we wanted to see from the finale, asynchronous and offline, and Tim had written down Abraham Lincoln mech, and we all had to try to figure out what Abraham Lincoln mech meant. But I think what we meant was the Washington Monument punching a robot in the face, which is...
Yeah, Abraham Lincoln getting up from his chair and walking across the reflecting pool.
The Lincoln Memorial.
To pick up the Washington Monument and use it as a blade.
The Washington Monument.
Yeah. But I think it's also probably is like, right, like, in like old bell tower, right? Like an actual, like I think there is like a building that, like gets opened up, and it's like, cog units coming out with better guns than they went in with, right?
Yes.
Better armor, better, ton of bazookas.
I think like Zed and Bitters were just kind of the vanguard of like the Ring's kind of like aerial troop movement. Mm-hmm. And I think dropping the Mercuria was kind of the start. And you see more and more of these airlifters like dropping teams down, right? Like right in front of the armory. And we see like cog units, like squads kind of dropping and rushing into the armory and like coming out in like little exoframes or like a, over the shoulder ordnance or like heavy weapons essentially. So like we've kind of just leveled them up.
And like some of these like construction mechs are now getting like weapons like integrated attached to them, and we're seeing them like shuttled off towards the walls, right, to like man the defense.
They're getting picked up like like the Eagles in the Lord of the Rings picking up the hobbits, picking them up and dropping them off at the edge of the city.
And I think the other thing that we get here, right, is like we've unified 3 pieces in a way, or 4 pieces really, right? Like the city had the weapons, it didn't have the bodies. Cog and Carta and the people of Coronatus have supplied that. The apparatus has like the logistical engine capable of like coordinating this defense, but it didn't have access to like the network it needed to do that. Rebus has given it that. And so, I think there is like seldom at like the stage again starting to like coordinate with the help of like I think other attendants, other people like plugged into this machine, right? They are starting to like direct these newly armed troops to like the weak points in the city's defenses, the places where it looks like the Concordat are closest to actually like arriving.
I think with some of this new like information that we get from Rebus's surveillance like elements, that there are, like Jasper said, there are some people who aren't fighters necessarily, but maybe this is where with the new information he realizes they don't have to be on the front line firing right at the people coming at them. We can put them in places where the Concordat is not yet, but might be, to like set explosives, so they aren't doing, exchanging fire. They are setting up things for when they do come, because they probably will. They will be walking into explosives or,
I mean, I think like in my head anyway, that's like the montage we're getting is like all of these newly armored people who are just showing up to this are now like kind of pouring towards the front line, right? So it's like you're seeing
shutting down streets so that we channel them to us, that there is places they can't pass, So I think that with the help from Thea and the city's like kind of arsenal that has been opened to us, the people, we are using them to not necessarily have to fight.
Probably worth noting, the sides of the city that are facing kind of the brunt of this invasion force is like Upper Highgrove, the Chantry, the Pillars. Like this is like a fancy side of town, right? Mm-hmm. Like, so I think all of the scenes that are probably on camera here are these, I don't know, like ornate gardens, like erupting in bullet fire, or like house to house fighting along like whatever the mansions in Coronatus, and through this administrative kind of professional sector. I don't know. It's fun.
Yeah.
It seems like it's working. We win.
I think at this moment, the camera, kind of like flitting between all these scenes, we pull back to like kind of a broader aerial view again, right? It is, actually I think we're like over the shoulder of an aero lifter, one of these like newly outfitted aero lifters that is zooming out over the walls, and we can see, this ceramic horde that is the Lilac Legion approaching. Foot soldiers and armors are starting to just hit the parts of the city that are outside the walls. They are starting to erupt in open fighting in the streets there. We can look down and see, right, the glimmer of their armor as they start to move in between the buildings, as this like scout kind of like flies out over the invading force. And we can see that white tower, the Anvil, this mobile fortress, is still crawling closer and closer with every passing minute.